Hi, welcome to Preparing Your Child for the Kindergarten Experience. And I'm a teacher here at Reid School. My name is Tateoka, and I'll be spending some time with you so that you can understand what you can do to prepare your child for the kindergarten experience. It's an exciting time in your child's life to begin formal education, which really begins in kindergarten. At Reid School, Dr. Ethna Reid was the director and also wrote the program that we use here, called the Exemplary Center for Reading Instruction. It was part of the Diffusion Network projects in the U.S. Department of Education and has been validated for its efficacy. So I'm going to be spending some time with you today on the social and emotional development of a child, the language development of a child, the cognitive development, physical development, how creative, using creative arts in your home, and of course with the reading language arts. And these are things that we're going to be touching on. At Reid School we have both half-day and full-day kindergarten. The half-day, they come in the morning, students come in the morning. They're given a very thorough reading language arts program. And I'll be talking about that a little bit later. And then they have a really great hands-on manipulative based math program. And then if the student stays for the full day, they're involved in a computer lab with the keyboarding through reading and spelling, another program written by Dr. Reid that's been validated by the U.S. Department of Education for how effective it is with children learning to read. They also will be involved in Chinese. We have a Chinese teacher that comes in, an art teacher, a very formal art teacher that will supplement what's done in the classroom. Of course, they are involved in social studies and science, and they go to a science lab once a week that reinforces what they've been learning in the classroom. So they're with a science teacher and doing laboratory work. Instrumental music and classical guitar are another part of the afternoon program for the kindergartners. Of course, we can't have a day without our physical education. We have a wonderful PE teacher who will teach the students many different skills, and a wonderful librarian who will spend time teaching your child to love books and to listen to great stories and great genre. So let's get started today. With the social and emotional development of a child, encourage your child to persist in tasks when encountering a problem by giving him tasks slightly above his current ability level. When a child cannot find a solution on his own, encourage him to calmly ask for help. A great book on perseverance, we're going to be talking a lot about perseverance, about stick-to-itiveness, because students need that to learn to read, is a book by Angela Duckworth called Grit. I would suggest every parent read this book, The Power and Passion of Perseverance, and how important that is in the learning of any child. And then play board games so your child learns to take turns, and set up several play dates with friends of various ages so they can learn to share and get along with others. Allow your child to stay with other trusted adults for a few hours at a time prior to the kindergarten experience, especially if they've rarely been out of the care of someone other than their mom or their dad. Tell your child you expect her or him to clean up after their play, and maybe even implement a little ransom box. Put it in there for a day and they can get it out later. This develops character. Character is the ability to dig down and find the strength even when things are going against you. I really love this book. It's by Carol Dweck. It's called Mindset. And it's the new psychology of success. And we study it in our older grades here. But Carol Dweck said all kids misbehave. Research shows that normal young children misbehave every 3 minutes. Does it become an occasion for judgment of their character or an occasion for teaching? Make sure if your child misbehaves that you use that time wisely after to make sure that they understand and you're teaching them. Don't judge, teach. It's a learning process, Dr. Reid always used to say. She also, Carol Dweck also said, beware of success. It can knock you into a fixed mindset. I won because I have talent. Therefore, I will keep winning. Success can infect a team and it can infest an individual. Alex Rodriguez, one of the best players in baseball, is not infected with success because he says you never stay the same. He says you either go one way or the other. And so, again, it's persevering. Even though you do well, you continue to persevere and get better. And so, as we teach our children that, that's a great social development skill. Benjamin Bloom, an eminent educator, looked at 120 outstanding achievers. They were concert pianists, they were Olympic gold medalists, they were world-class tennis players, mathematicians, they were researchers and research neurologists, but most of them were not remarkable as children. And even they didn't really show any clear talent before their training began in earnest. Even at early adolescence, you usually couldn't predict their future accomplishment from their current ability. Only their continued motivation and commitment, their stick-to-itiveness, their perseverance, in other words, along with their network of support, took them to the top. Bloom concludes, after 40 years of intensive research on schools learning in the United States as well as abroad, my major conclusion is what any person in the world can learn, almost all persons can learn, if provided with the appropriate prior and current conditions of learning. He's not counting the 2 or 3% of the children with severe impairments, and he's not counting the top 1 or 2% of children on the other extreme. He's counting everybody else. Then there are manners. We'll get back to Benjamin Bloom because he really is an important part of the learning here at Reid School. So what should children learn as far as manners go? I would suggest you purchase or check out Cheryl Eberle's book, 365 Manners for Kids. She suggests that a 3-year-old should be able to establish eye contact when speaking to another, to say hello, to wash hands before and after a meal, to stay seated during the meal, to use utensils at the table, to say please and thank you. But she also says some fun other things. She says that a 10-year-old should be able to hold a conversation with an adult, use good table manners, answer the telephone properly and take careful messages. That kind of dates the book. Show self-control in public places, take responsibility for keeping the bedroom neat, and know how to be on time. And a 15-year-old, sometimes I look at this and think, I'm not sure if my 15-year-old, when they were 15, could have done this. Initiate conversation and show interest with adults. Pick up after herself or himself and his or her friends at home. Maintain a noise level that is acceptable to the family, and be protective and kind toward younger siblings, and express appreciation to parents and others. Now let's move on with language development. Verbally give your child specific 1-step or 2-step directions and encourage him to follow through. In any kindergarten classroom, students will be taking instructions. Put your artwork away. Line up at the door. Let's get ready for lunch. Pick up the balls and let's go outside and let's play. Okay? So they need to be able to follow directions, listen, and follow through. Read to your child at least 20 minutes each day. That helps with their language development. While reading, point out how to hold a book right. That we read from left to right, that the spine of the book is always at the left, and how they turn the pages. After reading, ask your child what happened at the beginning of the story, or what happened after something else. So they learn sequential patterns within a story. And how did the story end? Give your child plenty of opportunities to draw without coloring books. Ask him or her to draw things that you read about or that they see around her, or that she sees around herself. Teach your child the uppercase and lowercase letters, and most importantly, the sounds each of those letters play through games and through play. And that's extremely important because we have an alphabetic language. And so learning those, that a letter represents a sound, is extremely important in language development and pre-reading. Cognitive development, have your child help you sort items, either by color or by size or by shape. It could be blocks, it could be silverware, it could be anything, it could be even laundry in your home. Teach your child to make various patterns, like red and blue and red and blue, or garage sale, those little garage sale dots. Those are great. You get them at Walmart and you can just make some patterns with those dots, or pom-poms. Practice counting aloud, 1 through 20, while you're driving in the car. Teach your child to recognize numerals 1 through 10. And that should be random, not just 1 through 10, but 1 and 5, and this is a 3, and this is an 8, and this is a 7, this is a 10. Count objects in your home. Have your child point to each object as she counts. Go on a shape hunt. Point out circles or triangles, squares, rectangles as you go on a walk or you shop at the grocery store. Talk about positional and directional concepts like up and down, inside, outside, under, over, behind, in front of, bottom, top, beside, between, off, on, stop, go. Those are even helpful in learning math. Talk about opposite words, big and little, empty, full, slow, fast, etc. Now, physical development is very important for young children. Give your child plenty of opportunity to play outside. Running, jumping, climbing. Play catch on a regular basis. It's great for eye-hand coordination. Practice skipping. Stack blocks together. Let your child use child-safe scissors to cut out a variety of shapes. Teach your child to write his or her name, capital for the first letter and lowercase for the remaining letters. Be sure that he forms all the letters from the top to the bottom. An O starts at the top and goes around, not from the bottom up. Ensure that your child's holding the pencil correctly. And play with Play-Doh regularly, or clay. Roll it, squish it, stamp it, even cut it. Encourage your child to cut out various shapes using child-safe scissors. String large beads and make a necklace. Play with an interlocking puzzle together. Creative arts are very important because that's definitely an important part of our afternoon here at Reid School. Always encourage pretend play and occasionally join your child in his fantasy world. Teach your child to recognize the following colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, white, brown, and pink. Use a variety of materials to let your child paint and draw and explore. Reading is a major part of any kindergarten curriculum, but here at Reid School it is vital. We spend a lot of time teaching our children to read and to read well, to read fluently and to obtain meaning. Really, reading is decoding and comprehending what they've read. And so if they can just decode words but they don't understand them, then you don't really have an efficient, good reader. So reading is defined as a complex, purposeful, social, and cognitive process in which readers simultaneously use their knowledge of spoken and written language, their knowledge of the topic of the text, and their knowledge of their culture to construct meaning. Reading is not a technical skill acquired once and for all in the primary grades, but rather a developmental process. Our reader's competence continues to grow through engagement with various types of text and wide reading for various purposes over a lifetime. So they might start reading in kindergarten, and it's just the beginning of a lifelong process of reading throughout their life. Now, if your child struggles with reading, a lot of parents have been told a lot of myths about struggling readers. Dr. Torgerson talked about the five top myths about interventions for struggling readers. He said if a child is a visual learner, they should be taught to read using a visual, not an auditory strategy. At Reid School, when children are taught to read, they use 3 modalities. We stress the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic. So the children learn better. They learn to really read and understand and see the likenesses and differences in sounds and in letters. And so this was one of the myths that he found. The second myth he found was that if a child has not learned phonics by the end of first grade, they need to be taught to read some other way. Phonics is absolutely vital in an alphabetic language in which each letter represents certain sounds, and those sounds go together to form words. The third strategy he talked about, or the third myth for struggling readers, was that children who struggle with phonemic awareness, vocabulary, or phonics in kindergarten and first grade will frequently catch up if given time. This is a myth. A student needs to be taught thoroughly and effectively in kindergarten and first grade so that they have the basis and the foundation of good reading later on. A fourth myth he found was that we should take guidance from theories of multiple intelligences or learning styles to help us adapt our reading instruction for different children. We know so much about teaching phonics and having children understand the language that they're learning to read, that this is truly a myth. And 5, a little quality time with an enthusiastic volunteer tutor can solve most children's reading problems. Children need to be taught by people who are competent teachers. And here at Reid School, we're very, very pleased with the competency of our kindergarten and first grade teachers. Now, what about the quality of instruction? What is quality of instruction? John Carroll, a researcher, said that the degree of learning really is a mathematical equation. It's the time allowed and the perseverance. Here again, we're talking about the perseverance of a child. And can a child persevere and learn? Because it takes a lot of focus to learn to read. But it also includes his aptitude, the quality of instruction, and the ability to understand instruction. So if a child doesn't understand instruction, the teacher automatically, in everything the teacher says, she's looking at whether the child can answer correctly. If a child can't answer correctly, it's retaught and re-emphasized so a child can be successful. Benjamin Bloom, again back to Benjamin Bloom, looked at quality instruction. He said that if a child's aptitude came in on a regular bell curve, with some students above grade level, some students below grade level, and most students in the middle, and if I have uniform instruction for all of those students, by the end of the year, achievement would be the same bell curve. The upper 5% would be the upper 5%, the bottom 5% would be still the bottom 5%, and the big major middle would all be the same. But he says, wonder if we do something to this uniform instruction. Wonder if we do optimal instruction per learner. We would skew the bell curve over so that more children would achieve and would achieve better. So why Reid School? Retention is greater. They retain because they learn so well. Transfer begins to occur. And transfer is something like, if a child knows how to spell the word oat, O-A-T. Well, if I know how to spell that, what about boat or float or even soak? And so transfer begins to occur, and so they're actually learning more words than the actual vocabulary that they're being taught. Achievement is affected positively, and placement of students and materials is actually higher. Children are placed and retested. They're not placed in a group and then it becomes stagnant. They're always moving and growing. Fewer errors are made. Teachers make sure that students are working and they monitor their work in such a way that students aren't practicing errors over and over. Teacher expectations are greater, and so self-esteem increases. There's a focus on writing and oral language. At Reid School, our young children have Science Day. They learn about what a hypothesis is and how to take a scientific question and make procedures to discover whether or not their question is true or false. They present that. They also have a powwow day and other days where they present their findings and their reports to the school. And students come through and they show them their projects. And so it's really important that we work on our written and our oral language, because that's the output communication skills. Input communication skills are things like reading and listening. And you can be a great reader and a great listener, but that's not how we share communication. We learn to read so we can speak better, so we can write better. And so we really stress those output language skills at Reid School. And reading taught through the content such as literature, but it's also taught in science and social studies. KRS, they're learning words that they're learning to type as they learn how to keyboard on a computer. So what are the 8 critical teaching behaviors that we use at Reid School? First, we elicit responses. We allow students to do and to say. It could be counting, putting blocks into tens and hundreds and thousands. It could be writing, and so their tasks become relevant. We also identify children's prior knowledge. And so we can help them if they are lacking in some kind of knowledge. If they're ahead, we can provide them with lots of material and help and experiences so that they can be learning too. We don't just teach to the middle. We increase the rate in the students' responses. A responding classroom is a learning classroom. It's one in which children are actively engaged in their learning. And yes, we do expect pupil mastery, very high levels, 83 to 100% accuracy. And some of those tests are just given orally. What happened with this frog when we watched? What is metamorphosis and how does that work? Show me how a microscope works. And so some of those are verbal, oral tests, others are where they're gathering information together. We model for students because we feel that the teacher should model how to do something, then prompt the children through it as they are learning it, and then allowing the children to practice until mastery occurs. We reteach when children learn to fail to learn. We focus on the student's strengths, reinforce and correct responses, and reteach if a student makes an incorrect response or does not respond. Dr. Reid used to say, never preach, why can't you do this? I just taught this, or punish, but teach and reteach and praise. And then we integrate all of the language arts components together. So they're learning to spell the same words they're learning to read. And those that they're learning to read, they can use in their writing. And they make stories up using those words. So what are the characteristics of effective readers and writers? First of all, your child would become very active, not passive. They actively make their own sense of what they read or write and learn to form and express their own ideas clearly. They don't just read and write on autopilot. They're racing through from start to finish. They stop, they pause, they go back. These are great strategies to learn. They reread if they didn't understand something. Or they'll reread a sentence and say, I don't think that makes sense, and they'll rewrite it. They have a good handle on the skills of reading and writing, and they have strong decoding skills and ample vocabularies. And they have a command of sentence structure, so they don't worry about, is this a run-on sentence or is this a fragment sentence? And they are motivated and self-confident. I've watched our little kindergartners, and they are very motivated and very self-confident. And research shows that one's attitude is more important than one's aptitude. They will continue to improve as they stay positive and they try hard. And they're strategic. A cognitive strategy is the process of knowing. So cognitive strategies are tools for thinking and learning. Students deliberately and purposefully select tools to help them learn and understand. In a study that was done a few years ago, they found that the best first grade readers read almost 2,000 words per week. Struggling first grade children read only 16 words per week. By the intermediate grades, struggling readers had read approximately 100,000 words. The average reader had read 1 million words. And the most avid readers have read as many as 10 million to 50 million words. We stress a great amount of reading. Not only reading here at school in different content areas, but also we stress reading with your family at home. That's a vital part of learning. A child who's learned to read and write is a different child, with sharpened memory, attention, and thinking. He rises to a higher level of speech development. As soon as a child's verbal development changes, thinking is changed. Thank you for spending some time with us here at Reid School.